Hello, everyone. My name is Tess Diver, and today I'm going to talk to you about how at Southern New Hampshire University we are measuring what matters to students. We are essentially using embedded feedback or voice of customer capture to drive strategic and meaningful change. So, how did we do this? We really wanted to know how students are experiencing SNHU, Southern New Hampshire University, in real time so that we can measure the moments that matter to them as opposed to measuring the things that matter to our business. We want to improve speed to intervention or resolution when students are not off to a great start in their program. So we decided to test the native survey feature inside Brightspace. I want to share with you what our process looked like because you can replicate this at your own institution. First, we interviewed students. Then we developed what we call experience indicators. We measured those indicators through embedded surveys located inside the learning management system. We conducted a correlation analysis. We're piloting just-in-time interventions using those data in real time. And we're working to measure the impact and refining the model over time. I'm going to take you step by step very briefly through each of these so you know what we did and how you can do it too. First, we interviewed 15 online students and 15 campus students from diverse backgrounds, histories, and experiences. Interview questions were open-ended and participants were compensated for their time. So some examples of questions we asked are, tell me about a positive experience you had in your learning experience or on campus, and what do you value most about your academic experience, or what do you value most about the online learning experience at SNHU? We also asked students to tell us about a time when they struggled so we can hear about that. So we synthesized the results of these interviews and created what we're calling student experience indicators, which reflect those things that students told us they care about and they most value in their experience. So here are some examples of the student experience indicators from the online students and the campus-based students. I want to point out that as we interviewed students, we noticed that there are differences between these populations as we would expect. We took the themes from the interviews, created these statements that can actually be measured, and these will be measured on a Likert scale, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. So for example, our online students told us they value knowing what's expected of them in the course, confidence in their ability to do their coursework online, that the learning resources and any academic technology in the course are easy to use. Campus examples, a lot of them were focused on a sense of belonging inside the campus. So peer-to-peer support, knowing how to get support, having those resources to stay organized. There were definitely differences between the populations that were interesting. So now we have our experience indicators. We want to pilot these in a course and start measuring them to see where we landed in our current state. So we decided to embed a short weekly survey inside several courses rather than emailing a weekly survey. This is to cut down on email volume and increase our response rates and make it easier for students to find the survey since it's just part of their course. So here's another example for you, how it was baked into modules, and we were very careful about the privacy language that we used, and the surveys themselves were just one click away for students, so very easy to get to. So privacy and data sharing language is really critical to get right and accurate, and it's different for students depending on whether they are on campus or online. We ran a lot of our language by our legal team to make sure that we were informing students about what will happen to their data, and then doing exactly that. And the mantra we like to use is say what you're going to do and then do what you say. So data privacy language is very important. And here are some of the piloting sections that we ran. So some of these courses are high enrolled and some are lower enrolled. The results provided an enormous amount of data that we can analyze and look for correlations with success and persistence. And this will tell us directionally some great information that we'll go over in just a moment. So here are two examples. Once we baked these surveys into the courses, these are some examples of what we're able to see now. So here are two examples of courses with the embedded surveys. which display very different student satisfaction patterns. In the first course, you can see that the satisfaction rates were lowest in week 1, which helps us to ask why and investigate, as there may be some difficult onboarding content or something else going on early in the course. In the other course, you see week 3 had the lower satisfaction rates. And I know for this course, the first big assignment is that week. So I might ask, how can we make that experience more positive for students? So looking at the satisfaction data, always asking the question why, and then digging deeper, avoid making assumptions, and just following up on what do we know to be true about what's happening in this week, so that we can really zoom in on where improvements could be targeted. Overall, we do see higher response rates in the embedded surveys inside the learning management system than we do emailed surveys. Here's an example of data we're collecting from the student experience indicators. So these are the questions we ask in the learning management system. You'll remember that students are responding to about 2 of these each week on a Likert scale that goes from 1 to 10. So we've used these student scores to develop a weighted score similar to a net promoter, where we weigh the volume of detractors and promoters to get that weighted average. In this example, you can see that we track these questions over the course of 2 terms. This course had been redeveloped, and we wanted to see how the new version stacked up to the old version. And you can see here by the green arrows that all indicators went up except for 1. So that helps us really identify where the course still needs some improvement. So I might ask why. Was there a change made to the faculty model or the faculty behaviors that could be contributing to this lower score in the term? This helps us hone in on areas to keep working on. And we are using these data to share with course designers, faculty training teams, policy teams, and to support continuous improvement. This enables us to be proactive with these data as opposed to waiting for the course evaluation after the end of the term. This is more of a leading indicator. Here's an example of the correlation analysis that we ran. We had about 400,000, almost 400,000 observations with 51 features. And this allowed us to, all of this data allowed us to do a correlation analysis between the students' response rates to the indicator questions, the survey questions in the course, and their overall satisfaction rate. So you can see the questions around their satisfaction level. I know it's expected of me in this course, and I feel confident to do my coursework online. Those were top predictors of student success. So we want to keep the questions that are most predictive and then figure out if we still want to keep the other questions or maybe move those to another feedback collection channel like the end of term course evaluation. So by doing this correlation analysis, it helps us refine the questions we're asking so that the questions are most predictive and most actionable for the institution. So we also learned that student satisfaction in week 1 is correlated to their overall success rate in the course. This tells us that week 1 is a very important week for students. If they are a highly satisfied student in week 1 and they're off to a great start, they're more likely to be successful in that term, as this graph shows. By week 4, we learned that their satisfaction rating is pretty locked in. So we have a very short amount of time in the course to make a big impact on students and help them get started on the right foot. This can be used by our frontline teams. If a student is not off to a great start and they're showing a lower satisfaction rating, that information can go to advising and the faculty member to help the student get back on track early in the term. Here's a look at the overall experience indicators by statement, and these are not real scores. They're just here for illustration purposes. But by baking in your surveys into the courses themselves, and then being able to report out on a score such as Net Promoter for these indicators, you can really see how the indicators stack up against each other. So in this example, for this particular learning model, you can see these ratings would indicate that students don't feel as connected to their student peers, and their overall satisfaction rating could be higher. These scores are a great way to see where the learning model or the experience is very strong according to the student ratings, as opposed to what we might assume they are. So this gives us real data that we can say, where is our learning model and our experience designed really strong and aligned with student needs and expectations, and where do we have some opportunities? So overall, this creates a lot of opportunity for internal discussion amongst the experienced designers, the course developers, frontline people, such as advisors and faculty, really leveling the playing field so we can all be discussing what we're seeing from students in terms of the strengths of the learning model and prioritizing opportunities for improvement. So I'm almost done with this presentation, but I wanted to highlight that by including survey questions inside Brightspace, our learning management system, we ask a general, tell us more about your experience in a bi-weekly fashion. So every other week, students are giving us qualitative insights into why they rated their satisfaction the way they did and giving us a little bit more. We then are taking those qualitative inputs and putting them into this tool called QUID, which allows us to see frequency of keywords and being able to splice and dice the data by all of the metadata that we upload with it, such as gender, ethnicity, location, all that good stuff. So enabling a robust qualitative analysis tool to facilitate better insights into what students are telling us, that has been very fruitful for our organization. Really understanding what students are saying week over week and how those themes are changing term over term has been wonderful for teams to align on. So for example, we can see, looking at this qualitative analysis at scale, where we really have hundreds and in some cases thousands of responses, we can see where the largest negative sentiment bands are and be able to understand what's happening that week for students. So that might trigger additional support or some additional communications out to students that allow us to be more proactive. So in a nutshell, utilizing qualitative feedback that we collect during the term is helping us be more proactive in our outreach and communicating to students who might be struggling. And finally here, using voice of customer or VOC or student feedback, whatever you want to call it, is a central business function to help us with our continuous improvement efforts. So by placing surveys inside the courses and using that data, we are really trying to hone in on what our priorities should be from the student's perspective in terms of course and program redevelopment. That should also be informing our product enhancement strategies. So where do we see opportunities for streamlining the experience across our platforms and our products? This data should also inform our intervention design and testing strategies. So where do we need continuous iteration? Where do we need some A/B testing inside the experience to really inform our next generation of design? And then it also informs our support training. So where our faculty training or advisor training might be beneficial to extend or add to based on what students are telling us. So overall, we're trying to do more with student voice and faculty voice, and then supplement those qualitative and quantitative inputs with our course and program metrics to really see holistically the strengths of our learning model, the strengths of the experience, what do we keep doing because we're doing it really well, and where those opportunities are to streamline and enhance the experience. I wonder if folks are out there thinking, well, this is great, but I have questions about how to implement this in my learning management system. What did it take to get that set up? I did not go into detail on that today, but if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you see my LinkedIn information here. I'd be happy to talk to you about how we actually did this at SNHU above and beyond what I've presented here. It's taken us a few years to get to this point, so there's been a lot of learning along the way. But I just encourage folks out there to really start with interviewing students to learn what matters to them, and then figure out a way to start tracking and measuring those things in order to see the current state of your learner experience more clearly to inform your strategic priorities. Because ultimately, we all want to be adding more value for students to keep them engaged, to keep them motivated, and having a delightful experience is certainly part of that. So thank you all so much for your time today, and good luck with the rest of the conference. See you out there.